Well, more racisms are afoot at ESPN.
What?
Fired contributor Jemele Hill and Deadspin writer
The fat pussy
accused the network of Whooite and right-wing favoritism as they continue to slam conservatives for being satanic.
Hail Satan!
Are you retarded?
Nice. I'm Jazz Berganzo, and this. Sometimes the jokes, the stupidity, and the ignorance
It's true.
just write themselves.
God! You can't make this shit up!
But it's what's next.
And here we go.
What's up, everyone? Jazz Berganzo. What's next? Your daily dose. Hope you guys are feeling good today on this Monday. And as always, new day, new week, and new bullshit. And of course, bullshit is on the menu. We go to ESPN. Yes, the network, the Sports Entertainment Network. Is that WWE? Well, anyway, pretty much the same thing these days. They used to talk about sports. You know, it was all about sports. You know, talking to the players, to the coaches and what have you. But no, you look at the last 5 to 10 years, and it's just become a bastion of who's more racist. You know, especially in the Trump era. But when you have contributors who got fired because of their racisms, of course, they're going to bitch and complain about the network that they got fired from. Enter Jemele Hill. Yes, she's notorious for slamming Trump, calling him racist. You know, of course, eventually it got her ass fired. So she teams up with a Deadspin writer, accusing the network of white and right-wing favoritism for what reason? Well, I don't know, but we're going to find out. And here we go. This comes out of Outkick. Jemele Hill, former Deadspin writer, accused ESPN of white and right-wing favoritism, and for some unknown reason, I guess because they got nothing else better to do. Anyway, Jemele Hill participated in an article this week accusing the network of white and right-wing favoritism. Quote, Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith prove that you don't have to stick to sports ESPN if you favor the the right. Of course, this was in addition to Karen J. Phillips headlined the piece in some website called News One, which of course no one's ever heard of. Anyway, if Phillips' name sounds vaguely familiar, he is the former Deadspin writer. Former Deadspin writer. Excuse me. It made it sound like it was current. He's former. He's more like fired. Anyway, who falsely accused a 9-year-old Kansas City Chiefs fan of wearing blackface by using a deceptive photo and shows only one side of the kid's red and black painted face. Yes, that clown. Karen Phillips. Karen. Nice. Fits him well. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, let's call him Karen. Karen is a scumbag who worships race like a religion. And Jemele Hill is about the only person left in media who's willing to still associate with him. Notably, Hill was the first person to interview Phillips after his hit piece on the Minor. However, Hill neglected to ask him about the column on their lawsuit filed in connection with it. Yeah, because the parents filed a lawsuit and of course, they settled out of court. Hill isn't much better than Phillips these days. In his latest trivial, Phillips argues that ESPN allows Smith and McAfee to break its own ban on politics because they are white and conservative. Yes, you read that correctly, white and conservative, but I guess they forgot that Stephen A. is black. Anyway, the network's two biggest personalities are getting away with so much of what the company's former black talent could never do, he claims. Phillips, I read about how Pat McAfee and Stephen A. Smith don't have to stick to sports ESPN because they favor the right. I also asked Jemele Hill, Howard Bryant, and Jim Trotter what would have happened if they tried similar moves at their old jobs. You know, like calling Trump a racist and a bigot? That Jemele Hill? Yeah, because she didn't get away with that. At first she did, but it caught up with her ass, didn't it? Anyway, let's take it step by step. First and most obviously, Stephen A. Smith is not white. It appears that Phillips was so giddy to use the race angle, he failed to notice how including Smith as a co-lead in the article undermined his entire thesis, as evidenced by the blackface debacle. Editing and facts are not really Phillips' thing. Second, Smith is not a conservative. He's actually quite liberal. He questioned Jasmine Crockett's motives as a congresswoman. The example that Phillips noted doesn't change that. Further, Smith keeps teasing the run for president as a Democrat. Well, I don't see it happening. Third, ESPN does not allow Smith to discuss politics. His political commentary lives on his independent-owned podcast during appearances on cable news. And as in latest contract, he specifically negotiated the right to discuss political issues outside of ESPN. Yes, the $100 million contract that Stephen A. Smith signed, he made it very clear that any political talk whatsoever is going to be held outside of ESPN on his independent podcast. Jamel Hill, you're a fucking moron, and so are you, Karen. As for McAfee, there's no evidence that he is conservative or liberal. He seems like someone who doesn't care much about politics and has strong feelings either way. Phillips takes issue with McAfee interviewing Trump on ESPN on Tuesday in honor for Veterans Day. Think about it. It's Veterans Day. You honor the veterans. You speak to the commander-in-chief. And who's that? Donald Trump. Wow, that's a problem right there. But as we explained earlier this week, McAfee didn't interview Trump about politics. He asked him about sports and the troops. Interviewing and acknowledging the President of the United States is not, by definition, political. However, McAfee also invited Barack Obama on the same episode. Obama, for some unknown reason, declined. Speaking of Obama, he appeared on ESPN several times during his presidency, including Pardon the Interruption. And unlike McAfee's show, which is produced independently of ESPN, yes, his show is outside of ESPN also. The network approved and booked Obama. Where was the doofus caterwauling then? Anyway, Phillips somehow concluded that the black ESPN personality discussed politics on his YouTube channel, and a white personality interviewing a president drove ESPN favor white and conservative people. We want to emphasize that Karen is indeed this stupid. So naturally, Jamel Hill was happy to chime in. Phillips, I reached out to some former high-profile black ESPN employees. Yes, former. Gee, I wonder why they were former. Gee, it couldn't have been because of their politics or anything. But no, it's racism. And as their thoughts on the current environment and the company and whether they would have employed similar freedoms during their time there. Phillips, when you were at ESPN, what would have happened to pitch the idea of having a black president on the air who had been impeached twice, a convicted felon, was a catalyst for January 6th, denied election results, when millions of Americans starved during holidays, and had a history of disrespecting the troops, like Pat McAfee did? Hill, the answer would just be a no, but a hell no. For reference, the other high-profile black employees Phillips contacted with Howard Bryant, who was arrested for allegedly smacking his wife in public. Hill pretended that there is a white-ring bias at ESPN is amusing, considering that she called Trump a white supremacist. Yes, she did, while at the network and didn't face any discipline whatsoever. ESPN did invite Hill back this year for Around the Horn Farewell Tour after she called white men the worst thing in America. But yet, let's invite her on anyway. To be clear, it takes an audience that's impressively susceptible to racially motivated buffoonery to even entertain the argument that Hill and Phillips are making. ESPN political bias is well documented, but it certainly doesn't lean right. Here are some examples of Phillips Here are some examples Phillips somehow missed. ESPN ordered Ashley Brewer to remove a photo she posted on GOP congressman, but per sources hasn't said a word to Mark Jones about his pinned image of Obama on X. The network pulled Paul Feynman off the air after he floated the idea of running for Alabama Senate as a Republican. Stephen A. didn't lose a single segment after teasing a Democratic presidential run. ESPN PR publicly condemned Sage Steele for questioning Obama's views on biracial Americans. The network said nothing when Ellie Duncan praised Michelle Obama on air this past summer. Oh, and also, Sage Steele also got fired for being a conservative on ESPN. So, there's that. Speaking of Duncan, she protested Republican legislation in Florida, erroneously dubbed it Don't Say Gay live on ESPN television. She later asked girl dads to protest giving abortion rights back to the states on the desk of SportsCenter. Her colleague Malika Andrews cried on the set after Roe v. Wade was burned, falsely claiming abortion is a constitutional right, which of course it's not. ESPN had no comment on either segment we asked. Likewise, the network declined to comment when Mina Kimes endorsed Karen Bass for Los Angeles mayor, or Tim Walz, yes, gay Tim Walz, for vice president. Finally, Sage Steele, Sam Ponder, Ashley Brewer, the three openly conservative talents at ESPN, have all been let go. Meanwhile, ESPN continues to elevate partisan left-wing hacks like Kimes, David Dennis Jr., and Ryan Clark, but we could go on. My thoughts. The fact of the matter is that for these knuckleheads like Jamel Hill and Karen Phillips to accuse ESPN of right-wing bias is absolutely laughable and bullshit. Just read you the facts, but they don't care about their facts. It's all about my feelings because they're crying because, God forbid, Stephen A. actually talks about politics outside of ESPN. That's a no-no. Also, for Pat McAfee to invite the President of the United States on Veterans Day, not to talk about politics, but to talk about sports and his support for the troops, oh my gosh, the racisms are out of control at ESPN and they must be stopped. Wow. And with that being said, I'm Jazz Berganzo. This is What's Next. Want to see more like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share it, subscribe to it. Hit that notification bell so you guys know it's a thing. Continue spreading the word about the show. Appreciate you guys watching as always, and we'll see you next time. Peace.